I'd love to hear your framework around fasting for women, what you currently do, and then how you might modify your fasting
Yeah.
over the course of your cycle.
Yeah. And so again, this is just my experience and it might not be exactly everyone's. I see from my closest girlfriends that fasting can trigger a lot of unhealthy relationship with food, and I can see
Right.
how it triggers like them. So it's just like a big disclaimer. It might not be for everyone for sure. And people have refeeding syndromes or they go too extreme. And my whole point always is fasting without feasting is, starvation, right? And it's like a big difference that you actually eat when you eat. And I love food. I love eating. So this is great. But obviously when I first got into fasting, I was like, I'm going to do it every day and I'm going to do it more and more. I started this 21-day fast that was just like bone broth, elemental diet kind of a thing. It was just like, I'm like, I'm going to do it for 4 weeks. 2 weeks in, I lost my period. And it took a while for me to get it back. It was like 2 or 3 months. And obviously, that was like a big warning sign. I'm like, oh, perhaps I can't really be so nonchalant about limiting calories and fat and out of my diet. And for me, it's like a big red flag when I lose my period. I'm like, it only happened twice in my life. And so that when I realized, I'm like, what if happens if I, stop fasting, like at least a week in my week 4 and just wake up in the morning, have breakfast in the morning, and then I push my fast. My favorite time to fast is between day 7 to 11. That's like I personally feel like this is like my prime time to fast, and I definitely delay my breakfast. But it also, with that said, I just had a book launch, and as you know, how stressful the book launches are. I was like, I knew it's day 7 and I knew it's time for me to push myself with fasting. And at the same time, I felt so stressed. I was like, I don't need another stressor. I don't need to do all the things that I usually do. And so I just had breakfast and haven't fasted for 2 months. And now I'm slowly going back to it because I feel safe in my body. So I think my relationship with fasting went from very extreme fasting every day, 18, 20 hours sometimes, to now just kind of realizing like, okay, maybe it's not what I need right now. And I'm in this stage where I'd like to have a baby soon, maybe in a year. I don't want to make my body feel like there isn't, enough nourishment. And so I'm being very intentional about it. But I guess it's different for women. And maybe if you're past that period of wanting to have kids and you feel great, you're still cycling, then by all means go for it. But it's just such a unique topic. I'm sure as you have worked with women, that can trigger a lot of unhealthy patterns.
Yeah, you said something really intelligent. I just want to come back to it for a moment, which was when you launched your book, even though it was day 7 to 11, which is traditionally the time that you like to be fasting, that you checked in with your body and made sort of the executive decision to say, hey, there's an extra load that I have right now with the book launch and the podcast tour and launching a book, like, whether it's a presentation that you have at work or, you have a big deadline that's coming up, it's a big ask of your body. So there's lots of traveling, there's lots of talking, there's lots of front facing and putting on
Yeah.
it's energetically very taxing. And what you just demonstrated really was auto-regulation. It's like, this is the time in my cycle where I really do like to fast. I really do like to push it. My body is actually more resilient during this time to push the fasting, but I'm not going to do it because I have this other load. I have this other stressor that I'm dealing with because launching this book and getting it out to the world is really important to me. And this is kind of the cornerstone really even with training. You might say, hey, it's like there's been many months where I am ovulate. Like I also feel when I'm ovulate. I know which ovary. I know when it happens. Like I
Yeah.
feel exactly when I'm ovulate. I know
Yes.
exact. But it's crazy. But there'll be some times where I'm ovulating where I should be saying, hey, this is the heaviest I'm going to lift this month, and I don't have it in me for whatever reason. I didn't sleep well. My kid was up last night. Whatever the reason is, and then I modify it. So I think that having these guiding principles that you're talking about in the book, where you fast according to your cycle or you train according to your cycle, is a wonderful guide. It's a wonderful template. And you can put your own stamp of individuality on it based on what's happening in your life at the time. So I just wanted to just kind of come back to that, because that so many women sort of white knuckle it, right? Like so many women would have said, no, it's day 7. I have to fast for 18 hours. Like this is what I'm supposed to do because I'm ovulating, rather than sort of overlaying, again, coming back to that sort of feminine, like, what do you actually need? Being someone who is
Like,
advocating
compare
for
to yourself.
yourself.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you're just like, hey, like this, I'm not gonna push you today. Like that's not fair of me to
Yeah.
ask you this because you're already doing so much. You already have all the stressors. So I love that how much we align on this, because again, this is not coming from your head, but coming from like, okay, I don't live in silo. That my only job in the world isn't to biohack and train. I also have real life. I might be a mom. I'm running a business. Like if
Right.
hey, if all you do is train and your only job is to look good, I mean, by all means. But most women I know live a real life and they have to go shopping for groceries and take care of their families. So it's just
And
like,
meal prep and
yeah,
getting the kids to soccer games and all the things. And also, where you are in your, stage in your life wanting to have children, you definitely always want to be there definitely always needs to be a safety signal to the body. Your body should never be like, are we going to have food? Should we get pregnant? Maybe this is not a good time to, there's not enough substrate. There's not enough nutrients around. So maybe we'll just skip this cycle, because if she gets pregnant now, this is a bad deal, right? So, you always want to be thinking about, how can I send the safety signal to my ovaries, right? Like tell them that it's okay, girls. You can work this month.
yeah. But to be fair, it's also like because a lot of people are like, I guess when I think back of where I was, it didn't feel like a big deal to skip my period back in the day. Because I was like,
Right.
well, I don't want to have kids. What's a big deal? If I push
Hmm.
myself and lose a little bit of, belly fat, I kind of like that athletic look. And obviously I don't have a six pack. If you see me on Instagram, like I just look normal. But my biggest thing was like, your period is your superpower. When you ovulate, you actually look better. You get stronger. You help, how your body like manages glucose and insulin. And so you are considered attractive, like more attractive. This is a time for you to shine. So like, even if you don't want to have kids, period isn't this annoying thing that it's not something that it's just like, okay, I only need it. I remember thinking that when I was a teenager, wait, I'm gonna get maybe 1 or 2 kids, but I have to have period every month. I was like, that just doesn't make any sense. I'm like, no, no, no. But like the period's actually a superpower. No one told me about like ovulation is my unfair advantage over men. I get stronger and more beautiful. And strippers that were on ovulations versus the ones that were on the pill would get twice as many tips because we have pheromones and like
Yes.
use them
Yeah.
to your advantage, instead of like numbing it all or just feeling like it's a burden, like it is your superpower. And so I realized I'm like, I don't care if I have kids or not. I want my period. This is like, I want the ovulation. I want even luteal phase. Again, we live in a masculine world, which is this idea that like the more you produce, the better. The more podcasts, the more posts you post. Wait, you're not on TikTok, you're not on YouTube. I'm sure you can relate. And you have the more you put out there, the better. And I think we're just slowly waking up of this brainwash because we realize, oh, like, I live between Los Angeles and Bali. And the reason I live in Bali is because it's very feminine energy. So no one glorifies being busy. It's almost like looked down upon. Here, when
Mm.
you don't work, people think you're lazy in the US. Like, oh, she has nothing to do. Or like if you ask
Mhm.
someone, how have you been? And you say, not really busy, I'm just hanging out. People would think that's like, oh, that's sad. She does, or she must not be doing very well, like for someone who's run their business. So it's almost like a badge of honor. Oh, I've been so busy. And without
Yeah.
realizing that as you create that pause and space around you, it's when the best ideas come. It's when the biggest thinkers and philosophers and visionaries, oh, their only job was to create space around them to call in a deeper, more powerful ideas. And we're not really leaving any space in our lives for magic, for the universe to actually just like surprise us because we're just like plan every day back to back.
Beautiful. Yeah, so well said. I think that we need to give ourselves space, that creative void in order to be creationists, right? In order to be creatrixes, if you will. And I remember I had one of my friends on the show a while ago now when she released her name is Jolene Brighton, Dr. Jolene Brighton, and she released a book called Beyond the Pill, and she was talking about post-birth control syndrome. And she said something, you just reminded me of what she was talking about with women who were on the birth control pill versus women who were naturally ovulating. They were exotic dancers. And it's just what you said, like women who were ovulating would get better tips. So she was like, listen, so your period is not just about having kids. It's also affecting your bottom line, ladies, which I thought was so funny.
100%.
Yeah, so, it's so good. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think it's just like, has anyone ever told you this? Growing up, like in 5th grade, I'm like, by the way, there will be a couple of days every month where you can just go for it, ask for a raise, and you're more likely to get it. It's the time for you to like just shine and like embrace everything that you are. But what do we tell women? Oh, you feel horny around ovulation? Well, that's just not good. That's wrong.
Yeah.
You're not allowed to be those things. But we're designed to like procreate and keep the species alive. Of course, around ovulation, we feel good in our bodies. We're feeling ourselves. And, it might be like a big taboo topic of like, oh no, like this, I'm sure like I have a little bit more freedom because I'm like, fuck it. But you as a doctor, like, I think there's all of that stigma. Also, as a doctor, you're not meant to be looking sexy or looking hot because, it's not, or you're a mom, whatever the story society tells you, but it's absolutely completely normal. And I think it's super hot when a woman is like both, I'm smart, but I also love my body, and I'm not going to apologize for feeling good in my body and feeling sexy.
I love that. And I think that there can be, you can hold two truths at the same time. Like you can be smart and you can also be sexy, right? You can be a mother and you can also be sexy. It's like not just as soon as you become a mother, it's like, oh, well, your former self, you lose your former self. It doesn't have to be that way. It doesn't have to be that black and white. In the same way that once you reach 40, you're over the hill, or you're deteriorating every second. It's like, pardon my French, but F that, there can be many things. You can be smart and silly. You can be happy and sad. There's many truths that we can hold at the same time. So I just love that you're saying that.